After months of speculation, suspense, and endorsements from different parts of the country, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has declared interest in the 2023 presidential election. The decision followed weeks of consultation and after formally informing his principal, President Muhammadu Buhari, which culminated in a meeting last night with governors elected on the platform of the All Progressive Congress. Competent sources confirmed that not less than 12 governors attended the meeting called by the Vice President.
Dear Nigerians, for the past 7 years, I have served as Vice President under a true Nigerian patriot, a servant of the nation in war and peace, and a man of integrity, President Muhammadu Buhari. We have, together, worked through some of the most difficult times in the history of our nation. But we have remained focused on securing the country, on providing infrastructure, and growing our economy. As stipulated by the Nigerian Constitution, our tenure will end next year. In this period of 7 years, I have served the government in several capacities, and I have, at the direction of Mr. President, represented our country in sensitive, high-level international engagements. I've been to practically all local governments in Nigeria. I've been in markets, in factories, in schools, and farms. I've been in agricultural, mining, and oil-producing communities, in the Delta, in Kebbi, in Enugu, in Borno, in Rivers, in Plateau and Ondo, and in all other states of the Federation, listening to the diverse experiences and yearnings of our people. I've visited our gallant troops in the Northeast and our brothers and sisters in the IDP camps. I've felt the pain and anguish of victims in violent conflicts, terrorist attacks, flooding, fire, and other disasters. I've been in the homes of many ordinary Nigerians in various parts of the country. I have sat with our techpreneurs in Lagos, Edo, and Kaduna, with our Nollywood and Kannywood actors, with our musicians from Lagos, Onitsha, and Kano, and I've spoken to small and large businesses. I stood where they stood, and I sat where they sat. I know their hopes and aspirations and their fears. And I believe that in those hopes and aspirations are the seeds for the great Nigeria that we all desire. I believe that the very reason why the Almighty God gave me these experiences, these insights, and these opportunities is that they must be put to the use of our country and its great peoples. Which is why I am today, with utmost humility, formally declaring my intention to run for the office of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the platform of our great party, the All Progressives Congress. If by the grace of God and the will of the people, I am given the opportunity, then I believe that first we must complete what we have started. Radically transforming our security and intelligence architecture, completing the reform of our justice system, focusing on adequate remuneration and welfare of judicial personnel, and ensuring justice for all and the observance of the rule of law, rapidly advancing our infrastructure development, especially power, roads, railways, and broadband connectivity, providing an excellent environment for businesses to thrive, taking the agricultural revolution to the next level, especially mechanization and developing the farm-to-table value chain, making sure that the government, its agencies and regulators serve the business community, creating a tech economy that will provide jobs for millions of young Nigerians, enhancing our social investment program to a full-scale social welfare program, completing the promise of lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty within this decade, completing the task of ensuring that all Nigerians, male and female, attend school, reforming our educational system for relevance to the challenges of this century, completing the task of universal health coverage for all, and strengthening the capacity of states and local governments to deliver on their respective mandates. Above all, front and center of our efforts will be the provision of jobs and opportunities for our young people. I now most solemnly and respectfully seek the support of fellow Nigerians everywhere in this land and the diaspora, young and old, male and female, in the great and exciting journey that we have ahead of us. I seek your own support. We will, working together, establish by the grace of God the Nigeria of our dreams in a few short years. We will build on the foundation laid by our predecessors. We will need to move with much speed, intentionality, and perseverance towards the vision of a prosperous, stable, and secure nation. I'm convinced beyond doubt that we have the creativity, the courage, the talent, and the resources to be the foremost black nation on earth. Let us now birth the expectations of greatness conceived generations before us. Let us build a Nigeria where the man from Nnewi sees the man in Guzo as his brother, where the woman in Warri sees the woman in Jalingo as her sister, where the love of our nation burns alike in the hearts of boys and girls from Boko to Yenagoa, where everywhere in this land is home for everyone, where our diversities, our tribes and faiths unite us rather than divide us. Let our tribes become one tribe, the Nigerian tribe, where all are treated fairly, justly, and with respect, where all are given equal access to the abundant opportunities that God has bestowed on this nation. It is time. God bless and keep our republic and her great people. God bless you.
Right, a lot to talk about this morning. The news is out there. Osinbajo has declared.
Officially, finally.
Finally.
Well, I don't know where to start here. I guess as far as the aspirants go, he's unique in the sense that we've actually had a taste of what a President Osinbajo might be like, because he was acting president for 50 days, during which he did get an awful lot done. And he earned the name Starboy, you'll recall, in that period, where he swore in Chief Justice of Nigeria, he passed, signed bills, and he negotiated successfully with some people who were feeling quite, disgruntled in the Niger Delta. And speaking of disgruntled people, he actually handled, it wasn't in that period, it was in previous period, he handled a protest really well. There was a protest, you might recall, of some youths who blocked his motorcade on his way to the airport. The youths were protesting a land grab by the Nigerian army. This was in 2017. And he actually got out of his car, engaged them, just really doused that situation. So he has that in his favor. He has the experience, which he listed. He knows the terrain. He knows the issues. He has that in his favor as well. He has the youthfulness, well, which is relative, I guess, and the intellect, which is not. Objectively, he's an intellectual that President Buhari has praised him for having. He has all of that in his favor. So those are the pros. On the con side, from his address here, he's going to be running really on continuity. That might give a lot of people some comfort, and it might give a lot of people pause. Not everybody would like to see continuity. Generally, we do praise governments even President Buhari's administration for their continuity of some of the Goodluck Jonathan administration's programs. We don't need to reinvent the wheel constantly because it wastes time. Government should be a continuum. So it depends on where you stand in the political spectrum, how you view that continuity that he referred to. And also the fact of the matter is, while the vice president is an integral part of any administration, it's not his administration. His job is to be loyal and pursue the policies of his principal, which is the president. So under him, we might see variations, but that depends on where you stand politically. And the other issue might be the splitting of Southwest votes, because it had been posited that he will not defy his former principal, Asiwaju Tinubu, who is also running for president of Nigeria. It had been posited that that would be necessarily an act of disloyalty. But apparently he sees it quite differently, which is why he's actually come out and, he's taking his stance that he has done. I guess he's thinking of his rights constitutionally, intellectually, morally. If you have a vision for the country, you're thinking you have the right to pursue it. But other people might differ on that score. And also the issue when we're talking about cons is that, yes, like I said, he's a professor, he's a known intellectual, he's not a politician. No matter how popular you are, which he is, you need a structure. And that might explain that well-attended meeting that he held with what we're told was 12 APC governors, and those who were not able to attend had really cogent reasons for not attending. So I guess that's where they come into play with their structure. So I guess may the best man win. The plot has definitely thickened this morning.
Okay, well, a number of points to be made. The first is that the declaration by the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, has put paid to months of speculations, permutations about whether he will get involved in the race or not. And on this program, we've said repeatedly that whoever wants to be a president of Nigeria, should have the courage to come forward and say so. And finally, after all those speculations, Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, has now come forward to say he's interested. And he has issued a statement this morning. That statement is titled, "Why I'm Running for President." Now, he is not running in the literal sense in which another aspirant did, running around the MKO Abiola Stadium to show that he will, even apart from seeking to be president, be a fit and proper person for the Olympics. He has taken, something that is familiar with, the intellectual approach. Now, his candidacy. Well, he has every right to run for presidency. The point about his former boss, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, also running, I think that's neither here nor there. He has been vice president, for 7 years, and he says he wants to continue where his boss is living it up. I think his greater loyalty is to 200 million Nigerians, not to one man. So the APC is going to hold his primaries next month, and he is going to square it up with his former boss, with Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, Governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello. Who else is on that APC list? Okay, so all the persons who have shown interest, they will go to that primaries, and then we'll see. Our own position is that may the best man win. Now, Vice President Osinbajo comes to the assignment, to the task, to his ambition, with very strong credentials. Between 1988 and 1992, he was an advisor, legal and litigation, to then Minister of Justice, Justice Bola Ajibola, who later went to the International Court of Justice. In 1999, Vice President Osinbajo served for 8 years as Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Lagos State. And under his watch at the time, and with the support of his boss, Asiwaju Tinubu, they were able to carry out a lot of reforms, within the legal system in Lagos State. The front-loading of cases, the alternative dispute resolution court system, the computerization of the judiciary in Lagos, improvement in terms of the welfare of judges within the Lagos judiciary, and so on and so forth. In 2014-2015, he became vice president alongside his principal, President Muhammadu Buhari. And what he did in that speech this morning, while I'm running, is to outline the quality experience that he has had, what he has been able to do as vice president, how, businesses, ordinary people, he has been able to engage Nigerians. He has visited, the Northeast. He has been to the creeks of the Niger Delta. So you can't take that away from him. He comes to the job prepared. But the major challenge, as I've tried to indicate, is will he be able to win the primaries when APC goes to the primaries next month? Now, one other thing that he has done this morning is to outline what he intends to do. Well, the items are a bit unwieldy, about 12 items, okay? He wants to work on agriculture. He wants to upgrade the security architecture. He wants to deal with the healthcare system. He talks about the social investment program he's going to do a lot in that regard. He talks about businesses. It looks like an agenda that is, under which he's aspiring to do more or less everything. Okay? I would have liked a more compact, mission. Maybe, if he wins, he will prepare a manifesto that is more concise that we can deal with. However, in that statement that he delivered this morning, he used the word completing about 4 times. We will complete this, one of which is lifting 100 million Nigerians out of poverty. He wants to complete that. He wants to complete the social investment program. In other words, he's saying this is promising us a government of continuity. Now, that may be an advantage. His boss, may like to hear that, if he encourages Osinbajo to succeed him, then this is somebody in whose hands, the program of the Buhari administration will be safe. And perhaps, if the Buhari team is unable to construct that legacy will be further effectuated and better defined by an Osinbajo presidency. And more importantly, if Osinbajo succeeds his boss, then of course it means that, the Buhari team may not suffer the same fate that the Jonathan team suffered. It means nobody will be chasing them up and down. So they will have that protection. But on the downside, many Nigerians may then say, continuity of what? Is it of insecurity? Is it of an economy that is comatose? Is it a corrective presidency that the vice president who wants to be president now will be promising us? So it's both an advantage and it's also something that can work against them at the polls. Now, I think I've addressed the Bola Tinubu question. Well, there's no morality in politics as such.
You didn't address
Yes, well, I said, look, his commitment is more to the population, not to one man. However, the Southwest is then likely to become a major battleground. If the APC goes to the primary, and let's say Osinbajo wins, he will need the Southwest. And that Southwest constituency has already been locked in by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. If Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu decides, for example, to leave the APC, move to another party, say, for example, the Social Democratic Party, with which some people have been trying to associate him, that will create very serious problems for Vice President Osinbajo in the Southwest, except he's able to cut a deal or negotiate or secure the support of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because let's face it, Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not a lightweight in this game. He's been ahead of every other aspirant on the platform of the APC. And I guess that is going to count for something. Now, let us assume that the APC, the vice president loses at the primary. That also may not be a good omen for him, because if he loses at the primary, that may effectively mark the end of his political career. But in any case, he doesn't need to worry too much about that. He's a professor. He can go back to his office at the University of Lagos and continue to produce PhD students, PhD candidates, and supervise them. So he has a second address. So I guess for him, this is not a desperate thing. For him, this is not like, I must be president by all means. He can even go and practice law. He can be a consultant. So he has his future secured, on all fronts. The third issue is, does he actually have the support of President Muhammadu Buhari? So does he have that support? If he has that support and the president is behind him and the president's machinery is supporting him, well, that will count for something. But the other thing is, who is going to emerge in the neighbor's yard? If the PDP brings somebody who is much, stronger, who is stronger than the vice president, well, maybe the power of incumbency, because what he's going to hope for, if he gets the primary, will be this power of incumbency, a vice president, in a position for the first time in recent history to succeed his boss. So there are many ifs, there are many buts, but in terms of on-paper qualification, yes, I think, Vice President Osinbajo, looks good on paper, and he has had the relevant experience. But do Nigerians vote on the basis of a resume? There are other X factors that are involved. Does Vice President Osinbajo, does he have the war chest? Will he be able to mobilize support? Does he even have the structure, the political structure in the Southwest to be able to prosecute this agenda? Because he has the image more of a public intellectual, of an academic, rather, rather than that of, a bare-knuckle politician. Whatever happens, if he gets the ticket, he will still need his former boss, I guess, in the Southwest, particularly.
Which is why that issue is so important.
Interesting times. So let's hope time permits me. I would not discountenance the Tinubu factor.
Of course not.
It's a very strong factor. And there are a lot of people that are watching this declaration by Vice President Osinbajo, and they said, you betrayal. And that's what will reverberate across the Tinubu camp this morning. And it's going to be battle ready. I'm sure they're going to put all their acts out, and you'll see the battle will start in the coming days. Some will be attacks in the media, some will be all sorts. His team, too, will start a battle. Because Vice President Osinbajo is not just close to Tinubu, he's also the man that did most of the legal cases of the APC over the years, and the ACN. He knows where all Tinubu's legal corpses are buried. The question is, might he want to fight dirty? I don't know. I expect some level of decorum in the fight, but definitely there's going to be a fight amongst their supporters. And that will happen in the coming days. Secondly, another very important part I'm looking at is, it's going to be a very dicey one. Because we have seen the antecedents of vice presidents trying to emerge after their principal, the president. We saw the case with Atiku Abubakar. A lot of people still feel that the relationship is still patchy between the vice president and the cabals in the House, owing to some of the things he said he did in those 50 days, owing to some sacking he did. Because when you plot that, that was why the vice president was very quiet afterwards, which a lot of people say could be as a result of those people trying to rein him in. And that's why you see that his declaration delayed for a while. It had to go through a level of consultation. And the back and forth played the game of denial. Anytime there was word out that he had made his declaration, then there was countering and denial by his spokesperson, because they were not all clear. And that's why you see that after this meeting with the 12 governors, albeit I think everything crystallized around last week, because I got some intel from sources that he was going to declare on Monday as a last week, that some things has tilted in his favor. That's another one. So the question is, this loyalty he's got now, this little base he's got, how loyal are they going to be at the primaries? That's another one. Because, yeah, they can give you their loyalty. The governors can give you their base. But it comes to the primaries. Because when you also look at what happened, like Dr. Bati was saying, one man was running around the stadium in Port Harcourt, he too had a bunch of people. He had the likes of Adams Oshiomhole there that I thought was in the Tinubu camp. But I saw Adams Oshiomhole there when Governor Rotimi Amechi did his declaration over the weekend. And there were some governors too. So the base is split. The question is, will they be able to get that loyalty till the end? What about some people that just see him as a commissioner? Because in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people will look at him and say, oh, he's not really vying for any elective position, maybe apart from being a running mate to the president. Osinbajo has not been on any ballot in his life. This is going to be the first time. Some don't see him as a politician. So will they take that chance on him till the end? Those are some of the questions he needs to ask himself. And most importantly, what is he coming to do for Nigerians? In looking at the grand analysis of what he put down, nothing has impressed me. Those are just rhetorics. Maybe when we start getting the granular detail of bringing 100 million people out of poverty, when more people have gotten into poverty since President Buhari made that declaration on June 12 that he wants to bring 100 million people out of poverty, that the World Bank is saying that 95 million people or 92 million people will be in poverty now. The number has increased. We keep topping the worldpovertyclock.io. What is the granular, or is it the social investment program, trader money that they only share during elections? Since the last time they shared it during the 2019 elections, what happened next? All right, we'll go, but a lot will still be said this morning. That's all on News Headline. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll have Ruth Zudiri, Michael Wilson, Adesu Omora, and Aaron Akeja to give us updates on Africa, global business, COVID-19, and sport and activities across the globe. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the Morning Show here on Arise News. Our dependable Rosa Sadiri is here to give us an African business update. Good morning, Rosis.
Good morning, Tundu. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Doctor. Good morning to all our viewers. You know I had to get in on this declaration. You know I had to jump in on this declaration. This is my fantasy 2023 economic debates, right? Now, it's a fantasy. It's not real. A number of things have to come together for this to happen. But with this declaration from Vice President Osinbajo this morning, the cat's out of the bag, right? Okay. So the 2023 election, it's about economics, in my view. It's all about pulling Nigeria, as far as increasing Nigeria's recovery, right? And these three men, right? Again, it's a fantasy, it's not real. But if these three men, if circumstances allow for it to happen, it would be a blockbuster debate. I'd pay money to listen to these three men talk about GDP growth, talk about unemployment, talk about job growth, talk about tech. Vice President Osinbajo has got a lot to answer for. You remember when he flew over our Papa in his helicopter and he said he was putting together a committee to try and work on gridlock. He's got a lot to answer for. He also went to Silicon Valley in California. He met with a bunch of CEOs. Did anything come out of that? There's a lot there. We know what Peter Obi is about. Gordon Emefiele hasn't declared yet. But this might put pressure on him. It might put pressure on a whole bunch of other aspirants out there. But this is huge. You need to see the talk in the business community on WhatsApp, political, everything. It's massive. So, you know, we don't even have to wait for 2023. All right, Steve, we can put this together right now. We can put this together. We can do this. It would be huge.
Money on it.
500,000 views on YouTube, easy.
Yeah,
all right,
money on it.
Let's move to First Bank. First Bank put out a notice. First Bank put out a notice on Saturday saying that they are revising their banking hours. This is kind of like what we saw with GTCO not too long ago. We actually did some investigations. It turns out that the number one reason is diesel. Let's take a look at, this is the notice. We revised our banking hours across all our locations. The revised opening and closing hours will be effective today, Monday, 11th April 2022. You can click there to view the list of branches with their opening and closing hours. Our alternative and digital channels are available and accessible 24/7. Let's put up a little graphic here, just to show you some of the branches. So the Ashaka branch, for example, in Gombe State, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. The Saminaka branch in Kaduna State, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. Shandam branch in Plateau State in the Middle Belt, 8 a.m. to 1. Aba branch in Anambra, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Alhuada branch in Rivers State, 10 a.m. to 3 Oko branch. This is just a subset of the different geopolitical zones. Can you imagine trying to get to a bank before 1 p.m. before they close? It's a problem. But again, the number one reason, according to investigations we carried out, let's talk about fuel, was diesel. Diesel costs, from what we've found out, is diesel costs are the number one reason why the bank has decided to revise its hours, because of how much it costs to keep, how much it costs for the branches to run. You can imagine with First Bank and its network across the entire country, it's incredibly expensive to keep running those branches. Also, insecurity. There's also the issue of, they also mentioned that apart from diesel, there's also the issue of insecurity and how it is affecting branch hours. Insecurity, of course, is having an impact on a number of businesses here. We know what's been going on in Kaduna recently. So you take diesel costs. Two, you take insecurity, and you've got a whole bunch of issues here that are impacting the business environment and the banks. It's not just the banks. It's pretty much anyone that has a physical structure in this country that has to run a gen, and then also has these hotspots across the country. Now, they talked about digital channels. What long term, if you look forward and say, okay, digital banking versus physical banking, what does this mean? If other banks follow this model because to reduce their cost of doing business, well, that means that this should accelerate digital banking. As they said there, you can use digital channels. But what does that mean for employees in branches. What does that mean down the line? That there may have to be some cuts that we've made if hours are being reduced. There's the whole, you know, a lot of these banks use contract staff, you know. So there's a whole debate, and then there's also the issue of how many people can use digital banking with respect to folks in rural areas and people who only depend on branches, whether internet is working properly, so on and so forth. So there's that discussion to be had as far as whether or not this is sustainable for all the banks across the country. And then finally to Algeria, Mario Draghi, Prime Minister of Italy, he's visiting Algeria today to go and talk about increasing gas supplies as Italy tries to reduce its dependence on Russia. Now, of course, I'm sure Doctor yourself would say, well, why didn't he come here to Nigeria?
I was going to say that.
Well, no, he couldn't come here because we don't have the capabilities. Algeria, there you go.
But I want to ask you, Reuters, are you a betting man? I want to know who is your money on, because you're clearly so excited by the fantasy debate.
As in who would win the debate?
Yes.
Whew. It's between Godwin Emefiele and Peter Obi. Those two. There's those two. I think as far as who would remember, Osinbajo and Peter Obi debated back in 2019.
Yeah, we remember.
Yeah, so it would be between those two on the right who I think would come out. Because if you think about Peter Obi, has been here several times. He talks about the economy. He does the math off the top of his head. Godwin Emefiele has been entrenched in a number of economic metrics here. So I think, but between the three of them, it would be blazing if we had the three of them debating.
And you know, that catchphrase from, what's his name, James Carville, Bill Clinton's strategist, is the economy is stupid.
Yes.
Since 1992, it's forever relevant.
Exactly.
That's really
it's all about the economy. Massive. Massive.
The economy isn't stupid. But two things, quickly, Roots. Number one, as regards the banking system saying go digital, we need to brace up for that because that's what's happening everywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Bank branches are shutting down. Numbers are shrinking as regards bank branches, and they're looking for digital options. So that's why I think we need to incorporate digital quickly. And how do we do that? Take, for instance, our ATM machines need to be more. I think the last line for our ATM machine is actually accepting deposits, and you can be able to post checks on ATM. There are ATMs all over the world, like Lloyd's Bank in London. You can post a check on the ATM machine. You don't even need to walk into the bank. So once they fix that line. But secondly, I think it's also illusionary to think that digital has not upskilled everything. Because you see, when you look at all those remote communities, they do POS transactions.
Right.
So you have a lot of those people that have POSs that, give you 10, 15,000 naira. You just put your ATM card. And those are the people, a lot of people will go to when they want to make their transactions. So the banking system is already, that disruption is already happening. And the earlier they get it, the better. And that's why we need to start retooling people and retraining them, for the new jobs that will come out. Because you see those traditional jobs, teller and the likes, those jobs are fast going away. Computer interfaces and software interfaces will be doing those jobs very soon. So how can we retrain them on digital skills?
Thank you.
So we need to retool the population.
Yeah.
Secondly, I'll talk about Algeria and
Draghi, Italy.
And Draghi, and Mario Draghi. Draghi is smart because when you look at it just across the peninsula, you get off from Algeria, get into Lampedusa in Italy. You're right there in Italy, bang on 3-4 hours, even if with the slowest ferry. So they will go to the place with the easiest cost-benefit ratio to them, which is Algeria.
Yeah.
The question is, 20 years ago, we talked about a pipeline getting from here to Algeria. We talked about many pipelines to Morocco. What have we done with them? We have an 18-month moratorium to at least be able to get gas across, even using what's it called, a ship or a sinking vessel, mechanism and the likes.
Yeah.
But we have not done all of that. All of those. So the lack of investment over the years in not doing the needful
is where we are now.
What is affecting us. And I just hope the next presidential candidate should also look at this.
The economy.
I want to go
That's
to
2023.
now. You know what the Bible says?
Uh-oh.
The Bible says the sons of Issachar understood the times. You know what has killed Nigeria? We are not like the sons of Issachar.
Okay.
We never understand the times.
Okay.
That's
Preach,
it.
Rufai.
Okay, let me start with the proposed fantasy debate.
Yes.
I don't see Emefiele in that equation. If by now he has not come out publicly to say he's interested in running for the position of president, I don't think, really that he's really interested. It's just some persuaders who are looking at the possibility that he could move from being CBN governor to becoming, president of Nigeria. Okay, didn't Mario Draghi do it from European Bank to becoming president of Italy? But it's more of a debate between maybe Vice President Osinbajo and Peter Obi, if he might, on the platform of the PDP. But so these are possibilities. As for the, Mario Draghi going to Algeria today and meeting with the president, well, there's an existing production sharing contract and relationship in terms of gas supply between Italy. Italy is ENI, right?
Yeah.
And Algeria, they have Sonatrach. Okay, what they want to do, the whole deal that will be formalized today, will be to double it. But will Algeria be able to do it? Algeria has an existing network of 3 pipelines to Europe. And the EU countries at the moment are facing an energy crisis on account of the war in Ukraine, between Russia and Ukraine. And as a result of that, Germany, Austria, and all the other countries that are exposed to the tune of about 40% in terms of supply. Average, the whole of the EU, 35% exposure to Russia. They are looking for alternatives. So what will help Italy in this case is just that, there's an existing relationship with Algeria, and then you increase it. The pipelines are there already, okay? But Algeria has its own issues too.
Yep.
Domestic consumption has gone up. And then there are investment issues. There are also infrastructure issues. So it's a question of, would Italy be able, to meet up? As for banking, what bank is that again? First Bank.
Yep.
Well, diesel, with the cost of diesel rising from about 200 in January to about 800 naira per liter in March, it makes sense. With the national grid collapsing 3 times in 1 month, it makes sense. And the First Bank is not the only bank that has done this. In March, the Guarantee Trust Bank, GT Bank, as it is known, also decided to reduce, working hours from closing at 5 p.m. to 4 p.m.
That's right.
But I hope that going forward, Nigeria will be able to address these energy problems in such a way that, businesses do not have to close because they are more dependent on diesel.
Right.
And any wonder why investors are staying away from Nigeria for now because of the one of the reasons is the energy crisis, is the security crisis, is the transportation crisis. So all of this.
Aviation crisis too.
Aviation crisis.
Oh dear. Well,
Thank you so much.
Moving on to more business update, Michael Wilson joins us now from London. Good morning, Mr. Wilson.
And if I'm allowed to vote, I'd certainly vote for Rotus as the new president of your country. Finance minister, if I'm allowed to say. Okay, let's have a look at Asia Pacific. China, basically the news from there is that producer prices and inflation relatively high. That's really hit everything in China. Their stocks down, and also Hong Kong stocks down as well. Average about 2%. This is quite interesting because what it points to, the producer price inflation plus domestic inflation means that manufacturers are really having to take off any increases in prices on the chin. They're not really being allowed to pass those on to consumers. And if they do, it's actually quite a big gap between CPI and PPI in China. And it means that manufacturers are being hit as far as the margins are concerned. And I know this is a favourite of ours, but don't forget the property stroke real estate sector. Another developer, Zenro, has actually reneged on its debts. And there's very little to be seen from the local from national government in China about what they're doing to try to put this right. Municipalities apparently have made it slightly easier. They're removing buying restrictions to try to put some energy into the real estate market, but it's not succeeding at the moment. Let's turn our attention to Pakistan. This really happened over the weekend. The Prime Minister Imran Khan's been ousted. The reason that this is important, apart from obviously important for Pakistan, and they will decide on a new person towards the middle of the year, I think it is at the moment. So it's a combined opposition in power there. But it's actually just the thing that India, which is its big neighbour, doesn't want at the moment, because what's happening there is that Joe Biden is visiting India, and it's saying to them, where are you going to get your oil from? You're going to continue to buy cheap Russian oil. So within that region, all this kind of instability is not really helping, clearly. As far as the United States is concerned, concerned, stock futures slightly lower. Wasn't a brilliant week last week, as you know. Treasury yields are actually up to about 2.7% at the moment. We've heard a lot about the reverse curve, yield curve, and all the rest of it. I mean, let's just hold our horses as far as that's concerned. Wall Street's coming off a very negative week. Elon Musk has said that he's not going to take up his position on the Twitter board. He was, because of his purchase. He has become the largest shareholder in the company. This is a note from the CEO. I know Reuters has been talking about this this morning. I think the implication of it is that they're not that unrelieved about it, to be honest. And it would have just been another distraction for a critical time for these companies like Twitter and Facebook and so on. Trying to come to terms with their new responsibilities and the host of regulations that are no doubt going to be applied to them. The Ukraine economy, the World Bank's saying it'll be cut in half. We sort of know that it's not going to be good for the economy. The closure of the Black Sea has actually stripped it of its export markets and so on. The World Bank is saying that 90% of the country's grain is actually unharvestable at the moment, even though it's given grants to try to help that to happen. And so it's really, I mean, it's not telling us anything we don't know, but it's important that bodies like the World Bank are concentrating on it, of course. As far as Russia sanctions are concerned, the EU countries are still really at loggerheads about what that's going to do. The point about the EU, and this is a really vital one, is that every country has to agree before they actually take a decision. And at the moment, never mind Germany and Italy, as you've been hearing, but also Hungary is absolutely saying that any kind of restriction on Russia exports, or oil and gas exports, is a red line which they will not cross. At the moment, they're saying that. Of course, things may change, but basically, there's not a great deal of unanimity there. The other big sort of political news over the weekend is Macron and Le Pen going now head-to-head in April for the presidential race as far as France is concerned. Le Pen not doing that well because in terms of the general perception about her. People are very worried about the war in Ukraine and Russia and so on, and undoubtedly they are. There was a feeling that Le Pen was slightly more friendly towards Putin than Macron was, even though Macron started during this presidential campaign going to talk to President Putin. Of course, he's been involved domestically and hasn't done that. So I think it's going to be very interesting to see how that actually falls out at the moment. So that's politics, geopolitics actually just across the border from us. As far as the UK and France is concerned, the fishing dispute has been resolved, which is good news. There are some licenses, about 70, waiting to be actually fixed to various companies. But that's generally relatively good news. But what isn't good news is the fact that across the Channel, there is still a big jam of lorries and so on at Dover and the ports up that particular motorway there. A perfect storm, it's being called. The P&O ferry dispute, IT failures, and also the holiday season, all of which could have been avoided. But of course, in true UK fashion, it's all piling up to be a bit of a problem. And there's particularly a lot of perishable goods actually on those lorries right now. And finally, we come to oil, and oil price has been falling in Asia, absolutely predictable because of worries about China growth and so on, worries about inflation. And that's where we stand with our global view this morning as we begin another, but I'm sure will be volatile week.
All right, Michael, real quickly, I want to talk about the fantastically corrupt Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK that is rigging the tax system in the UK. This is like the British level of corruption. I mean, I've never seen something like that. The man in charge of the taxes of the people with his wife rigging the system and not paying the British taxpayers' purse the money due to them. I mean, I've never seen this kind of level of corruption in my life. I don't know what you'd like to say about that. Secondly, I'd like to talk about, what is happening in America. And I keep insisting, how is the Fed reacting to everything that is happening? Yeah, jobs are being created, but you can see those tightening measures which some people complain is affecting businesses.
Okay, As far as the Fed's concerned, I would just repeat what I said last week about it, that I think, as far as I can tell at least, and my job is to look at the markets and investors and so on, and the business news about things. And what I'm seeing is that investors actually are not that, don't like, of course, what's going on. Nobody likes higher interest rates. Why would they? But what they're seeing is a central bank which is trying to get ahead of the curve and trying to rein in against inflation. And if you're choosing between all the evils of the world, one of them is inflation. There's no question about that. And I think that investors are generally happy. In as much as they've got to be happy about one alternative or the other, and they're looking at a central bank which is bearing down on inflation. Yes, of course it's clumsy. Of course interest rates and monetary policy is clumsy like that, but it always has been. And I'm not making excuses, I'm just saying I think this is going on. I don't share your lack of optimism about the US economy. I think there's plenty more jobs to come. The jobs figures are coming along very nicely indeed, and we have no idea what's going to happen to the world's largest oil producer either, as people, as you've been reporting this morning, people are going to find different sources. As far as the Chancellor of the Exchequer is concerned, I think corruption's actually putting it slightly strongly. I am no particular supporter politically of the Chancellor, but I'm just saying that what he's been saying is, that I've done nothing illegal. I think that what the Labour Party is saying is that I think the Chancellor has a moral responsibility, and his wife, to pay taxes where they actually live. Sure, all right, fine. And non-dom status, which is a very old-fashioned thing, left over from the time when a lot of our profits were made by rich people going to India and other continents, including Africa, making a huge amount of money and wanting to be taxed there rather than here. Yes, of course, it's got its roots in that sort of colonialism, which nobody particularly approves of these days. But I think you need to be very careful. It's not what I hear his wife, as I understand it, have not been doing anything illegal. I think morally is a different kind of case. When you get onto that ground, you don't want to take those moral arguments too far, because we'd all stop buying things, for example, where we know that they're made by people who don't get paid a great deal of money. That's why prices are down. So those moral arguments, whilst they're very strong, are very, very difficult.
Yeah, we're trying to manage time, but very quickly, if you can do it in 1 minute. Sri Lanka, China, India, Japan, and Bangladesh are promising to help President Rajapaksa with the economic crisis that he's facing. Would that keep him on the job?
As far as Sri Lanka is concerned, Sri Lanka has, as I reported last week, an enormous amount of economic problems right now, and it's showing its weakness coming out of the pandemic, not doing that well. I think anything that helps those kind of countries, as we would like to do in terms of trade, would be a good idea. Will it keep people in power? Got no idea. But in terms of people who are actually on the breadline at the moment and well below it, I really hope that what the reforms planned for those countries and any kind of trade that can exist between them helps.
Well, thank you very much, Michael Wilson.
Right, Adesuwa, we'll come to you for COVID-19 updates. Adesuwa, great to have you. Morning.
Good morning, Rufai. Good morning, Tundu, and good morning, Dr. Abati. Great to be here. Very quickly, good morning, guys. The number of coronavirus vaccines globally that have been administered is now way past 11 billion doses. However, the International Federation for Pharmaceutical Manufacturers says over 13 billion doses have been manufactured. So currently we have vaccine supply outweighing demand. However, a considerable gap still remains in inoculation rates between the richer and the poorer countries. As you can see, the most important figures for you there on the Johns Hopkins University tally. Here in Nigeria, across the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory, 19.9 million people have targeted for COVID-19 vaccinations have received the first dose, while another 13.4 million, or 12%, have now been fully inoculated in Nigeria. To India, where the country yesterday started rolling out booster doses of coronavirus vaccines to all adults 18 and above. But the third dose of the vaccine, which India is calling precautionary dose instead of a booster, will be limited to frontline workers and those older than 60 who get them at the government facilities for free. Every other person will have to pay for them in the country between 600 and 900 rupees. And in conversion, that's between $7 to $11 for the vaccine doses. It depends on the vaccine you're getting, the COVID shield or the any other one you're getting in the country. Now, the ongoing free vaccine program through government centers for the first and second dose, however, will remain free for all adults in India. To Saudi Arabia, where only 1 million foreign and domestic Muslims will be allowed to travel to the holy city of Mecca this year for the annual Hajj pilgrimage in July. According to the Ministry of Health, the pilgrims must be vaccinated against COVID-19. They must be under 65 and they must test negative for the virus 72 hours before departing for Saudi Arabia. The number of pilgrims from each country will be capped based on quotas and other health considerations, but we don't know what exactly that would translate to. And finally, we do know Washington is not a fan of China's zero COVID-19 strategy. However, over the weekend, the U.S. State Department said its non-emergency staff at its Shanghai consulate and families of employees could leave due to what it says is a surge in COVID cases and what it terms tough virus restrictions in Shanghai. However, China was quick to respond, expressing strong dissatisfaction. China's foreign ministry says that the country's pandemic prevention and control is scientific and effective. Back to you guys.
Well, I made a point previously that the Western media, and particularly Western nations, have been very critical of the zero COVID policy adopted by China and also, extended to Hong Kong. And the issues are about human rights, basically. And so what you have now is the U.S. consulate in Shanghai saying that its non-essential staff will be allowed, not to come to work or to even leave China. And because, they were talking about setting arbitrary impositions by the Chinese authorities. And that's what the Chinese authorities are fighting against. This is not new. This is part of that, rivalry, or is it Cold War, between U.S. and China. And, but it's not just the Americans or the Western media protesting. Even people in China, in Shanghai, in Jilin, in Shenzhen, in Guangzhou, they find, the COVID-0 policy particularly very punitive. Not even dogs are allowed to come out. Food is supplied, and all of that. So that's causing a lot of anger. Animals are called, children are separated if the children are infected, and then, of course, the parents are not infected. They are separated from their parents. And as a result of this is causing a lot of hardship. But, of course, China rejected, the insinuation by the U.S. Embassy in China and said, look, they are not going to be deterred. They think that the zero COVID policy is scientific and also effective. But of course, you don't expect, China to listen to what the United States thinks when it comes to how to manage its own affairs. As for Saudi Arabia, well, it's an interesting development. In 2019, 2.5 million pilgrims were allowed. By 2020, only about 1,000. By 2021, only about 1,000 pilgrims, and those persons were allowed in just by lottery. But now this year, following the reduction of restrictions in March, now 1 million persons will be allowed in, and this is consistent with the attempts by many other jurisdictions to reduce the restrictions. But of course, you still need to take a PCR test 72 hours before arriving for the Hajj, and many intending pilgrims will be excited. But anybody above the age of 65 is not allowed to come in.
Well, China,
I hope Nigerians will know that.
China actually reversed that policy of taking infected children away from their parents into mass quarantine. There was a huge public outcry, and the government had the decency to back off that really damaging policy. And, commendations to Saudi Arabia for doing the right thing. We can recall what happened with the Kumbh festival in India and the kind of disaster that sparked. And Saudi Arabia had a more scientific approach to it. Thank you, Adeswa.
Thank you very much, Adeswa.
Yeah, they made concessions in China, but it's not totally free. An infected parent can still accompany an infected child, but in the case where one of them, the parent or the child, is not infected, you cannot accompany them to the isolation ward.
Oh, I have completely just different information that you can accompany your child. Your child doesn't have to be taken away from you. It's your right to go in and expose yourself.
If the child is infected.
Yes. If the child is infected.
If the child is infected.
Yes.
You can now accompany. Yes. You can now accompany.
That's what I said.
But if your parent is not infected or the child is not infected, you still are separated.
Anyway, thank you very much, Adeswa.